At the end of my Thor Love and Thunder review, I said that I needed some positive Marvel in my life, and that Spectacular Spider-Man was on Netflix. And you may think, with how long it's been, that maybe I was rewatching all of the episodes. Well, I watched episodes, sure, but it wasn't a rewatch. You heard that right. Despite the fact that this series was very popular, considered one of the best Spider-Man series of all time, I had never seen it before this year, except for one episode when I was a child that I only know I've seen it when I re-saw it. I don't have the nostalgia for this show that everyone else does. But I was talked into watching it. I had heard that it was the best Spider-Man show ever made, so I thought, why not? And boy, am I here to tell you that everyone who told me this is the best show, they were not lying. So a little context going into this. For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a huge Spider-Man fan. I own all of the live action films as well as the animated film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I've read some of the comics. I own a Sam Raimi cosplay suit. And I grew up with the TV show Spider-Man the New Animated Series. No, not that one. There we go, that one. The one starring Neil Patrick Harris. So needless to say, when I went into this Spider-Man TV show, I had a lot of high hopes. I had high expectations because I know this character and I want him to be portrayed as well as possible. When I first saw the art style that Spectacular Spider-Man was going for, I didn't know what to think. I thought it was very simplistic. Like, you could add a few more details here and there. But the more I watched the show, the more I realized the simplistic art style actually adds to the show. Because there aren't so many difficult proportions on these characters, and it's a very simplistic art style, it allows them to do so much more with kinetic movement during some of the action scenes. And sure, action scenes aren't the meat of these episodes. They go on quite well and they're very, very thought out. But if you're going to do an action scene, at least make it entertaining. And these guys knew that that was a thing they needed to do. Of course, the art style is not the only thing I particularly like about the show. I also really love how, for a cartoon, it was actually very heavy on its story, to the point that it had continuity that I didn't expect. For instance, there's an early episode where Flash and Peter Parker make a bet. And the bet is that whoever loses has to come dressed as a cheerleader on Halloween. And when that Halloween episode actually arrived, I didn't expect that they would hold up to it, but no, they did. They did do that. No, they did. They take continuity very seriously on this show, and I'm actually really happy about that. We need more continuity. I love when there's a little bit of consistency across storylines. And speaking of storylines, the thing I love so much about this show is that it picks up after Peter Parker is already Spider-Man, but he's still young enough to have the Uncle Ben tragedy weighing on his heart. Not to talk down on the MCU, but if you're going to have teenage Peter Parker and already have him be Spider-Man, he's still in that mindset where what he did, the lesson of with great power comes great responsibility, is still weighing heavily on his heart. So there's no reason why you should leave Uncle Ben out of this. It's a great way to skip the spider bite that we all know and get right into the nitty-gritty, while also maintaining the core of what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. And it's not just Peter Parker's story who works here. I love a lot of the stories with the villains. Electro is immediately relatable because he's not trying to be a villain. He just wants his life back. The Lizard, easily one of the most sympathetic characters in the entire show. Seriously, if you don't like this version of the Lizard, there is something wrong with you. And oh boy, then there's the Green Goblin. I don't sympathize with this guy whatsoever, and I'll avoid spoilers to the best of my ability because, oh boy. And further than that, I feel like my history with Spider-Man allowed me to love this show even more. They have so many references to the comics that just are great. Everybody talks about how in Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter's lifting up the rubble in reference to Amazing Spider-Man number 33. Spectacular Spider-Man did it as well, with Peter holding it up in Season 2. And I thought it was a really good reference, and I loved the way they did it. More references that I love are the entire symbiote arc. Yes, they draw some parallels between the Sam Raimi movies, more on that later, but at the same time, it's everything I wanted in the Black Suit and more. The entire episode, Intervention, my favorite episode of Spectacular Spider-Man, feels like they were trying their hardest to replicate Amazing Spider-Man number 300. It's great. It's fantastic. It goes beyond just villains and character stories too. Mary Jane Watson, when she first meets Peter Parker, her line that she gives is the exact same one as in the comics. Face it, Tiger, you hit the jackpot. Now, you don't have to be a comic fan to enjoy that line. It's very Mary Jane. But the fact that they're going this far to, please comic fans, it says a lot about it. Come on, what other Spider-Man property is going to address that Peter's first love interest was Sally Averill, the cheerleader who was into Flash Thompson? But I should address that I don't think this show is perfect, not by any means. Season 1 is fantastic, spectacular even, but Season 2 fell flat in a lot of areas because it spends so much time around this will they, won't they, that I just really don't like that trope. You have a 13 episode season of will they, won't they, you think it'll be resolved by the end, which I guess technically it is, but it just feels like so much time was wasted with this that could have just been avoided. I don't know, that's just me. Maybe you guys feel differently about that. I will say though, for as many flaws as Season 2 had, it did have the reference to Amazing Spider-Man 33, as I said before, and also has the best villain twist in a Spider-Man thing that I have ever seen. It's really good and I love it. Another thing I don't like is how some of the villains are introduced. Don't get me wrong, as great as this show is, I still think that Sam Raimi's Sandman is better than the Sandman here, as well as the Doc Ock. The Green Goblin I can kind of go 50-50 on. There's great things about both of them. Again, I won't get into that. And of course, we all know J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is going to be better than the Spectacular Spider-Man JJ. Sorry, but that's just the truth. But at the end of the day, this show is great, and my only regret in this show is that we were never given a Season 3. That's the only thing that makes me sad about this. Sure, I didn't like Season 2 as much as I liked Season 1, but it set up for a fantastic what could have been with Season 3. Thanks Disney for ruining the future of that franchise for us. It's always Disney when it comes to bad Marvel things, isn't it? Spectacular Spider-Man is a must-watch for any Spider-Man fan. If you've already seen it, go rewatch it again because it's just that good. And if you haven't seen it, well, don't be like me. Go see it, watch it with your friends, and enjoy the best Spider-Man TV show ever made. I'm sorry I couldn't release this video on Spider-Man's birthday for the 60th anniversary, but hey, Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun stuff version is coming out soon, so there's that. So, until the next Spider-Man related content, or just the next content in general, thank you for watching everybody, and have a God bless day.